Did you know that the acid-alkaline balance in the food that you're eating affects many things? It can affect the sex of your child. It can affect either a dissolving of fat, if you're bringing in alkaline elements, a dissolving of fat from the body, and even as much as affecting our emotion and our mood. That it is interesting that most of all of the substances which cause people to feel elevated or high in themselves are alkaloids.
Welcome to the Universe Inside Our Mind. My name is Jubb, and this is Dr. David Jubb. And today we are active in the studio, and we're going to be talking about the science of body language, what we call analog sculpting. So what is analog sculpting? Why do we call it analog sculpting?
Well, analog sculpting is where we sculpt the body to access state-specific behavior. Body language has a component of analog sculpting and whole body calibration.
Whole body calibration.
Whole body calibration is where it's possible to calibrate the movements that are happening on the outside of the body with what's happening on the inside of the body. So we have analog sculpting, which is the position and things that's taken. So a candle being brought down to the bottom right-hand quadrant here is going to affect us in a unique way than what it would if that candle was brought over to the left-hand quadrant. There's a reason why most of the artists tend to sign their paintings on the bottom right-hand side.
And why
this is analog. This is
why do they sign it on the bottom
sculpting.
right-hand side?
Because feelings are more expressed as a person is drawn more into this psychographic space down here in the bottom right-hand quadrant. What draws our attention more in ourselves down toward this bottom right-hand quadrant is more a configuration of the left hemisphere, which is involved in the sequencing of behavior. When the eyes are drawn down like that, it's more of a motor movements and kinesthetic sequencing type of behavior and things. So when energy is coming from this quadrant down here, in whole body calibration, we call this a kinesthetic accessing cues, basically. The viewers at home may have heard about neurolinguistics, and whole body calibration is an advancement, a more refinement of simply the eye accessing cues and things that are being taught presently in neurolinguistics. Whole body calibration and in whole brain functioning, whole body calibration, which is a component of our training, whole brain functioning, really goes into taking these accessing cues into the whole of the body, basically. So we have analog sculpting, which you started by talking about, and that is how the body is shaped and sculpted in the space around us. The various things that we set up around us is called analog sculpting. If I left a book on the table to influence somebody, this would be called analog sculpting. If somebody hangs a picture on the wall, how they put that picture there, what they put there, what is down in the bottom, in the middle of the wall as a colour, how far to the left or the right is the bed. These sorts of things are analog sculpting. And whole body calibration, as I said, is where it's possible to view movements and things that are happening on the outside of the body and know what's occurring on the inside.
Okay, let's get right into some of this stuff, because I think this is really interesting and very cool. What is some of the body, what can we do to read the body? What are some obvious things that you scan for if you see how somebody's walking across walking through their lifetime?
you know, I mean, you really could say that what we say is that the body is the mind's experience of itself. We perceive everything through the use of our body. And so it's possible to get an idea of the way someone's using their body, and we can get a sense of what's going on inside this person's brain as a result of the various kinds of movements and things that are happening on the outside. For instance, if somebody was walking down the street, you know, and they were walking like this, and there was a lot of up and down, you know, literally, you can literally interpret this is that there's a lot of up and down. If somebody was, you know, had flared themselves out like this and I was walking like this, what do you suppose?
You see that a lot in New York City, right?
What do you suppose this means?
Maybe in Texas, too. Huh?
What do you suppose this means?
It looks like you're covering more space. You want to look bigger or larger.
Right. So actually that is the truth of the matter. Person is, there's something territorial that's happening. This is typically coming from somebody who has been moved laterally in their life rather than moved forward. So there's a metaphor at the deepest of unconscious levels of what's occurring on the, you know, inside the brain. You know, and this is affecting, you know, everything just about. So if somebody
what about somebody who closes the door really hard all the time?
It's somebody who is more involved in a proprioceptive, like kind of a movement, versus more tactile. You know, when you witness somebody, you know, and they're smoothing and or they're feeling something, you know, with their hands, which is smooth.
I do that a lot.
This is more accessing tactile sensory perception. You know, and if somebody was wishing to be more smooth in their life, they would certainly want to become more tactile, more dexterous in their tactile sense of things. If somebody is driving in their car and they put the indicator on by whacking it like that, this is more proprioceptive movement versus somebody who keeps their hand on the steering wheel and click. You know, that's more...
just uses the amount of force that's needed.
There's a little bit. This is more a little bit more tactile. So proprioception is where there are where there are receptors in our joints which tell us our limb position in relationship to our body, whereas a tactile sense is more of smoothness this way. You know, so it's possible when, like for instance, I'm doing this right now, this is more an auditory lead, and when I bring my hands up to my mouth like this,
he's just getting ready to say you.
Because I use my right hand, it's more kinesthetic sequencing, more left hemisphere processing, which is involved in sequencing more. So this is very specific, and this is very specific, you know. So
this different than that. How does the hand movement differ?
Well,
or the choice of hand itself.
When we're using more our right side of our body, this is involving more left hemisphere processing. You know, because, excuse me, when we use the right side of our body, this is using more left hemisphere processing. Okay. Versus when I would have used the left side of my body, this is used more right hemisphere processing. And
basically. Just give us a quick little overview of what kind of things happen in the right hemisphere and what kind of things happen in the left hemisphere.
Well, our left hemisphere, Annie and I have just done some 15 years of research, some very seminal research, which shows the hemispheres to be specialized for the mediation of mood. The hemispheres are specialized in the mediation of quite a few other types of behaviors and things. For instance, because of this hemisphere's more open neurology, it has less myelin sheathing. It has much more protein. This hemisphere has much more myelin sheathing and more fat. This hemisphere's open physiology is involved more in on-off type processing, versus this hemisphere is involved more in tuning into the gestalt of what's being said, for instance, to draw the meaning from things. So this hemisphere is involved more in sequencing kinds of behavior where logic is used, the kinesthetic motor sequencing movements and things, whereas the right hemisphere controlling the left side of the body more is involved more in visual, spatial types of processing, more internal types of processing. Left hemisphere, by virtue of the language exchange between ourselves, is more connecting us with the outside world. Many people call this more the somatic hemisphere. It is very interesting. Research shows that there's an alpha rhythm, once this alpha rhythm is present in every person's left hemisphere now, there is a gating reflex, more or less, that happens in the brain, which causes more whole brain patterning, causes more ability to access pathways and things in the brain. Whereas if there wasn't an alpha rhythm here, maybe there was more beta or something like this, much faster sort of a rate and things like this. It does not quite fit into kind of like if we were running some still frames to make a movie. We ran it a bit slow, it kind of might not quite fit. If we ran it too fast, it might not quite fit. So if it's run just perfectly at the right speed, our brain processing actually occurs in a more appropriate and a more what we call a whole brain patterning way, and there's much more neural efficiency, meaning that just the neurons that are needed in the task are being accessed, basically.
Right. So the right hemisphere of the brain is more like the other than conscious self, and the left hemisphere could be saying, just to simplify things, more like the conscious aspect of self, right?
Yes.
Writing and reading.
You could
and
say that because
communicating in the world.
Yes, you could say that.
Okay.
You could say that. It is amazing, when the hands are brought together, that's an absolute indication of something occurring in the brain. There is more integration occurring. Where if a person was walking with a foot pattern where the right foot was turned out like this is an indication that the left hemisphere somewhat has turned more out on itself versus the left hemisphere turned more in on itself. What's happening down at the feet?
There's a crossover, right? There's a crossover on the brain. So just in case, I don't know if everybody has their neurology down, but just in case. The left hemisphere of the brain goes to the right side of the body, and just the opposite.
80%.
Yeah, about 80% of it, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Whereas the right hemisphere goes to the left side of the body, 80% of it mostly.
Okay.
So what's happening down at the feet is giving us an indication of what's happening in the brain, what's happening with the hands, what's happening with the body, all of these things, all of these movements and things are giving us an indication of what's happening inside the brain. So
interesting. That's so interesting. Well, I tell you what, we're going to take a small break. If you're interested in this and you'd like to see some more of David and Annie Jubb, you can join us in Manhattan if you happen to live in Manhattan at 208 West 13th Street. Every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock we have a free lecture where education is our main theme, and we cover all kinds of interesting topics. So come on down and join us, and we'll be back right after this short break. Hey, welcome back to the show. This is The Universe Inside Our Mind. I'm Annie Jubb, and this is Dr. David Jubb. Today we've been talking about analog sculpting and body language.
Whole body calibration.
Whole body calibration. So we're going to also be showing you some yoga asanas, and David's going to do a couple more demonstrations for us. But just before we do, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about with the whole body calibration?
Just that there's a lot that's possible for us to
there.
actually communicate to people, and that that the way that we use our body, we can become more conscious of this. Emotion is a primitive form of language, and body language is a language actually, and we all could become much more aware of the use of our body in accessing state-specific behaviour. We could all become more aware through whole body calibration, the language, of somebody else's communication, how congruent somebody is, how integrated a person is in their behaviour and things.
We just finished a long piece of research, actually. It was just submitted to New York University. And in a real quick nutshell, do you want to just describe what that research is? Because I think it's very beautiful and very elegant in its simplicity.
Basically, all of our psychoanalytic theories are based on the premise that thought has a corresponding physiology, an idiomotor dynamic it's called. But most of the as I said, the psychoanalytic theories are based on this, and yet there is hardly any research, and that's what our research very much is about. It's very much about the physiology of thought, basically.
So mood.
And the physiology of thought, how our body is used to access state-specific behaviour. And our research specifically was looking into the body language of pleasure and aversion, basically. And so what we've done is we've come up with a taxonomy of behaviours which fit into a pleasure or aversion. So it's possible for the viewers at home to use this inner standing to be able to sense another's and become conscious of another person's behaviour, and the degree to which this person is coming more from the whole brain functioning versus the degree to which this person has come from limited brain function, basically. So the research very much was looking into the body language of pleasure and aversion.
Through the body movement, the body weight shifts and movements to the right tends to be more pleasure or expression into the world. And body weight contractions and shifts to the left tend to be more to do with introspection or even aversion.
You could say that, we might not say that tends to be, we might say that there is many things also over the left and the right, and it does not necessarily mean that a person is feeling pleasant because they're over the right versus over the left are feeling aversive, even though the left hemisphere controlling the right side of my body is more involved in pleasure, and pleasure creates more whole brain patterning and whole body patterning versus aversion, which is mediated more by the right hemisphere, which is controlling more the left side of the body, basically. So it doesn't necessarily mean that because somebody is more body weight contractions and shifted over the left, that necessarily would be aversion. We have to fit these things more into a context. It could be more introspection, more crystallization, and more intuitive sort of sensing, because this is the more right hemisphere processing.
Right. But in the extreme cases, it's safe to generalize. So if you see somebody who's really presenting something excellently on stage, they're going to be presenting more to the right side of their body, right? You're going to see that really clearly.
You may, but not necessarily. When somebody is pleasant, they can be using more the whole of themselves, actually, typically. Mm-hmm. Whereas if somebody is averse, typically you are going to see more left movements, which is indicative of more right hemisphere processing. Mm-hmm. But just because you see left body movement or right body movement may not necessarily mean anything by itself.
Definitely.
We have to fit things more into a context of something occurring.
And everything is moving rather than a still shot. So anyway, we're going to do a little bit of yoga asanas today. David's going to tell us a little bit about the cerebral spinal fluid.
Well, actually, that might be nice for the viewers at home to get a sense of this. How is this cerebral spinal fluid, which is very integrous fluid, which bathes all of our nervous system, our brain stem, and our spinal column, and all of the neurology. We have a fluid which is bathing the brain. And this fluid actually has to flow to bring in the nutrients and the oxygen for cell respiration to occur and for waste matter to be cleared away and nutrients brought in. And basically, actually, if you could just turn just sideways a tiny little bit so the viewers at home can get a sense of this. Turn to face me just a little bit. Basically, every time Annie or you at home are breathing in, it is as you're breathing in, the belly is pushed out more or less as you're breathing in, and pressure is brought to bear, which pushes the cerebral spinal fluid against the front part of the spine, and every breath in like that, which causes some pressure, causes the cerebral spinal fluid to rise up the front of the spinal column, and providing that our hips are in alignment, and this is what we're going to talk a little bit about. Our hips have to be in alignment like this for the cerebral spinal fluid to actually flow properly, because this basically is like a pump in the sacrum, and the pump that's pumping the fluid actually up into the brain is you have this palate, and right behind, right up at the back of the throat, up in here, you can imagine that this is the roof of Annie's mouth. This is the front. We have the pituitary, the anterior pituitary and the posterior pituitary here, and we have the pineal gland here, and these are very integrous sort of organs, endocrine organs, and basically movements, breath and things causes this pump, and up in here basically, when this sort of a thing happens, basically this rocking motion causes a release of these endocrine glands and things more into the body, and causes this cerebral spinal fluid to be pumped up into the brain. So cerebral spinal fluid is flowing down the back of the spine and flowing up the inside of the spine. And so it's possible to influence this as a result of how much our posture and our vertebrae are in alignment with each other. And the other thing about this, which would be lovely for us to get into a little bit in this last part of this segment, is to do with blood flow. And how can we go about correcting the spinal column more or less, and creating more blood flow to the organs and things? So maybe we should do this.
Yeah, definitely. Show us a posture.
Okay, and maybe you can make some comments about actually this. And I thought what I'd do is just quickly show people a posture, or an asana that it's called in yoga, something that you can do at home to start to get more blood flow to your organs and start to create alignment of your spine, basically. Because we're always sitting in chairs and things like this, and so we say, hey, get rid of your heavy furniture, get down on the carpet at home, or your rugs at home. Get rid of your heavy furniture. That's what we say. And
clear some space in your life.
That's right, and actually be able to walk through the room without having to walk around things. You know what I mean? So get down on the floor on your hands and knees now, if you want to kind of learn how to do this. And basically, you're going to have your hands directly underneath your shoulders. And what I'm doing is I'm going to bring my right in front of my left, and put my left behind my right. And I'm bringing my feet out to the side like this. And now I'm going to slowly sit back. And now, you might less than be able to completely sit on the floor like this. You might only get to this position. You might have to put a little bit of a prop underneath you or something like this. But basically what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to lengthen the, and actually Annie's doing it with her left over her right. And in a moment I'm going to swap over and do that as well. But now, for the right buttock, as I am doing it here now, and for Annie's left buttock, you're wanting to push this down to the floor and feel an energy wanting to push this down to the floor. You're drawing your tummy in, because we have these pelvic diaphragms here, which is our cleansing force, causing this cleansing basically. So you're holding your stomach muscles, you're activating your stomach muscles, which we have these pelvic diaphragms here. So as you're holding this in, if I can turn a little bit on the side, so people can see at home. And basically, I'm wanting to get this, my gluteus maximus here, which is your butt muscle, we're wanting to lengthen this because this happens to be a muscle which has been shortened enormously as a result of all of the sitting in chairs that people have done. And so if you're doing this at home right now, you probably can feel a little bit of a lengthening, an extension occurring here, and we want to develop strength more in this extension. And so the tummy is brought in, and you're sitting upright like this, and you're little by little sitting upright, right, with your back arched like this, and you're wanting to bend at the hips, keeping your back straight. So you're not bending over like that, but you're keeping your back straight, and you're bending forward like this, and you're quietening your breath down, and you're breathing quiet, and you're really feeling a nice extension and burning a little bit happening perhaps in your butt muscle. And then you're going to swap, and you're going to do that on the other side. I know we only have just a very short, maybe another minute, and then you're going to wrap the show up a little bit. I would love just to finish with this little piece here. This, of course, you're going to swap over, and you're going to do it on the other side as well, like Annie is doing on the other side. I mean, basically, it would be nice to do a spinal twist whilst you've warmed up and you're in this position. You're going to put your right hand over your left arm over your right knee, or if you're Annie, you're going to put your right arm over your left knee, right, like this, and you're going to come around like this. And you're going to look around, and you're going to hold your tummy in. You're going to quieten your breath down. And I just had a small subluxation, which has become in alignment as a result of me doing that small spinal twist. And I know we're just about running out of time. I want to do it on the other side, just so that I can be even. And I'm asking you, the viewers at home, to be able to do the same too. So we're coming up around like this. I'm in an upright position. I'm holding my tummy in like this.
Shoulders are fairly even with each other.
And I'm looking around. And I got another subluxation on the other side. So I hope that this small posture, increasing more blood flow, you can actually come on over like this and shoot energy out your hands and shoot energy out this butt like this on the left side, and actually open up the intercostal muscles to create more blood flow to the pancreas. And, of course, if I was on the other side, I could do it basically, to create more blood flow to the liver. Anyway, you rub it up.
Anyway, so thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you got something valuable out of this. Our
whole body calibration.
Whole body calibration and analog sculpting that we did today. This is the universe inside our mind. You can come and join us if you live in Manhattan or you're anywhere in the area. Every Tuesday night we have a free lecture where we just give away this great information. We cover all kinds of interesting subjects and topics at 208 West 13th Street. That's every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. And around the country, look for us on your local cable stations because we're going to be in your town soon. So anyway, have a really lovely day. It's Annie and David Jubb for the universe inside our mind.
Wonkin' tonkin' he need you, Hasu him su me yo.